Today's matchup: GuMiho, soO, Classic, Hero. Round of 16, Group D.
Africa TV, Freak Up Studio, live. 2023 GSL Season 3.
Welcome back, everybody. We're getting ready to go to the elimination match between Classic and soO. The winner will move on to face Hero in the final match of Group D, and we've had some crazy games so far. If you're just tuning in now and you missed GuMiho versus Hero, absolutely go back and watch that series. It was a thriller from start to finish. GuMiho as well against soO, and the first series of the day showed some really creative builds, really showcasing the new Cyclone, the new version of Mech, but now we have to see whether Classic or soO are going to be able to pull it together to come through against Hero in the final match. And I gotta say, soO in that ZVT series against GuMiho, against some really difficult builds, he played very well. He's looking to be a lot more solid than he was earlier on in the series. Seems to be regaining his form. Whereas Classic against Hero, that one went all the way down into game number 3. It was a very close match from start to finish. And it feels like we have these two veterans kind of re-entering the fray here in Code S and regaining their original form. It's an exciting time.
Man, it was such a great series that we just had back there. I'm excited to have more Hero games coming up. By the way, soO looking pretty good.
Yeah.
He has a real shot. He's still got it. He's going to be going up against Classic. Classic narrowly lost there to Hero earlier, but sad to say, one of these two guys is about to be eliminated.
Wonder who it's going to be. I'm really curious about where soO's ZVP is at, because he seemed to play so well against GuMiho, one of the best Terran players in the world. He got a round of 8 in Season 1, a round of 4 in Season 2, just made himself another round of 8 player against Hero, of all players here in Group D. So if soO can kind of show the same prowess in ZVP that he showed against ZVT, it's possible that he advances out of this group. It's possible he takes down Classic, it's possible he takes down Hero.
Yeah, this has been such a fun night so far. Well, let's get into this PvZ, see what Classic has to show us about the matchup. We've had these adjustments in the game. We're still trying to get our arms around, what has truly changed in the meta, what is simply speculation, what is maybe a needed growth spurt in one race to overcome another, and what's actually just still the same. A lot of times you'll have things that you think change the game entirely, and people play like it, but then it turns out it's not as big of a deal as you thought.
Yeah, PvZ doesn't feel too different. There is some more room for Hydra timings, but I don't know if soO's exactly that kind of player. When I think of soO, I think back on his more defensive, almost like the stats of Zerg, kind of a defensive macro-based Zerg that likes to consume the map and maybe not play for the late game like Dark, but try to dominate in the mid game with a huge economy. So we'll see if he decides to use some of these new benefits of the patch, goes for a Hydraless timing, goes for something different. Classic, again, just a legend in PvZ, one of the best players in the world for the majority of his career. Is he gonna have the skill to come through against a legend in soO? Let's find out.
Twisted Minds, Classic. Guangdong Freaks, soO.
Okay, so we've got Hatch first coming down, the pylon over here on the low ground for Classic. Yeah, look, soO is a player I've been a huge fan of for a long time. I would love to see him advance out of this group. I think it's unlikely. Certainly not because he's not good. We've already seen that he's actually in pretty good shape. It's just that Hero and Classic are both looking so strong right now.
Yeah, Hero seems to be in really good form. It's kind of an upset, in my opinion, that GuMiho was able to beat him 2-1 in the winner's match of this group. I think he still is the favorite to advance in Group D against either Classic or soO, but I really am curious about where soO's at in ZVP. It seems like he's coming with some builds prepared. He went for a kind of offbeat opening with a 14 hatch before Overlord, and then Extractor Trick to get another drone out, throwing down the pool. Just making sure that it's not possible for Classic to get cross-map in time with a Probe Scout to actually block that hatchery. So certainly some preparation coming in. The question is exactly what kind of mid-game he's going to play for. Now, in Alcyone, you do have that gold base, and this is also one of those maps where a lot of players like to expand. If you're spawning in the top right side, you like to expand towards the top left. Same way in the bottom left, and that can lead to some kind of funky situations where you're both expanding closer to each other, and it can make the game a lot more tumultuous in the mid game, where if somebody just wins a fight, then suddenly the reinforcements can rally across fast enough to truly end things quickly. But we'll see if he decides to play that way. Creator kind of gave us a clinic in PvZ on this map with his games in, I believe that was that Group A or Group B? I can't quite recall. It's all kind of a blur to me, but showing some really fantastic PvZ.
I want to see if we're going to have more of a turtley PvZ from Classic, or if it's going to be more of a timing attack based one. It did seem like earlier this year the passive PvZ had some success in the year before as well, but it's hard to pull off. But it also seems like lately we've had more success with some of these timing attacks. People have continued to be creative, and I think the Zergs are a little bit more uneasy, especially when you get these changes. Whenever you get a patch or any kind of changes, I always feel like that can affect the defending race first.
Yeah.
And in many matchups, one race is defending, the other's attacking. As the game ages, usually the defending race is mapped out almost perfectly exactly how to hold something. But when you have a couple stats change, things are nerfed or buffed, that's when it becomes shaky territory for the defender.
Classic really messed up his wall, by the way.
Yeah, the wall is awful. The feng shui of the natural expansion is really bad.
Oh, Classic actually going for a double Adept harassment with this one. I like this. Imagine if that first Adept didn't take so much damage from soO's really impressive Queen control. Already, Classic able to get 3 drones and still survive with 1 Adept is a pretty big win here for Protoss as the third base is coming in. Now the Oracle going to find here. Actually, Queen's a little bit out of position, so Classic should be able to get 3, maybe 4 drones. Doesn't go for the 4th one, but in total, 6 drones this early. That's a very nice catch, and behind it, no pressure really coming his way. Spore Crawlers are now coming in for soO, but quite delayed. And so you have to wonder whether this follow-up Oracle coming in as Classic even pumps out a 3rd one now from the Stargate.
You watch damage. That ugly Wallen is going to save him later on when Lings try to come by.
He's going to be able to build a pylon between all the
pylons
buildings.
and force fields that can block in there in time. There's even an X-ray machine they got to run through to check the Zerglings for weapons. They get everything in that entrance.
Yeah, well, Classic's going to power up in the most standard way with a Twilight and Forge follow up from these 3 Oracles. And he's going to let the Shade complete, not seeing very many Lings at all. So drones are going to get pulled. At least 2 more drones should go down. Classic, it's hard to micro and actually pick off the low HP drones when they're all clumped up like that. So only getting 2 drones instead of 3. Now I'm wondering if he's going to die because he did scout. He reconfirmed there's no Spore Crawler here and the natural expansion. So actually going for the Queens. I love this play. Gonna micro one of these Oracles back with no Spore Crawler like this. I mean, this is a style that you can play as Zerg, but your Queen placement has to be completely perfect. And so Classic just kind of able to pull soO apart in a really magnificent way, finding so much damage.
Now there is a Link counterattack here, so it's not just Classic being absolutely abused in this game.
Surprising there isn't a shield battery here. You usually get that one set up for the initial pylon. So a Stalker, 4 probes, maybe even an Adept going down. That's solid counter damage coming in from soO. So we have a lot more gateways coming through, +1 and Blink. No robotics facility just yet, so maybe a bit of a hero-esque style coming in.
You beat me to it, that's what I was going to say.
It's my line if I say it fast enough, Tasteless.
You just got to stay ahead. But I think, yeah, 100%. He's going to be able to apply pressure and probably expand with the Zerg. Although, actually, I guess he's got enough Oracles. For a second, I thought he had only those 2, but he's got even a little bit more than that. But the combination of Oracle Stalker, this was like a crazy thing that happened a couple GSLs ago where Hero just sort of relied purely on micro And the fact that Stalkers can blink away, and if you do end up committing down on the Stalkers with Zerglings, the Oracles can melt the Lings. And it makes for a pretty frustrating game from the Zerg.
Yeah, Classic. It seems like he is throwing down the Robo, actually getting a second Robo now, and Robo Bay also underway. So this is going to be the full committed Stalker pressure that we have seen from Protoss players in the past, especially in Korea. Instead, it feels like Classic might be lining himself up to something like a 4 Colossus timing, but we'll have to see exactly what his game plan is. There are still many branches through which the game can go, as the Adept in one of the funkiest Wallens I've ever seen, just continuing to hold down the fort. And soO back at home throwing down a Baneling Nest. It looks like he's going to try and play a Roachling Baneling style, which is really powerful in the mid game, but I feel like Classic is one of those players that isn't going to flounder too much on the defense. And if Classic can effectively parry this aggressive style that soO seems to be building up for, it could be a really tough position for the Zerg, as Classic now moving across the map, able to clean up the most forward creep timbers. Even these Oracles coming in, getting another Queen. Classic is playing very well this PvZ, I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good sign for soO, because a lot of these little engagements where the Protoss comes out ahead result in a push from the Protoss that just flattens the Zerg.
Oh, Classic's gonna be taking the 4th base too, Tasteless.
Yeah. Gold base and 4th base. So this could be a game where we just see Classic slowly tighten the noose here on soO.
Infestation Pit coming in for soO, so it seems like he's not gonna hard commit to this Roach Ravager style, and man, really good control from Classic right here, blinking back.
Good
dodging
dodge
the
of
piles.
Just a gentle glide out of the way of the Biles. And, you know, I gotta say, I think the Stalkers are getting pushed back a decent amount. But keep in mind, you know, especially with the gold base and the boost that gives you, how many more Warpins we're gonna have. Stalkers after Stalkers after Stalkers coming in. And with the Colossi as well, suddenly the Zerglings just disappear.
Yeah, and we have Colossus number 3 and 4 also in production. The Hive only just now begun, so there should be a window. If Classic, after these Colossi, comes out a Warp Prism and maybe some other Robo unit, really just pick whatever you want, that he can hit before the Vipers are out and actually do some really big damage. So we'll see if Classic decides to play it that way. One of the benefits of taking the gold base like this is you can kind of function on a lower economy, so to speak. You need less workers to saturate the base because there are less mineral patches, but you still have a big economy. And actually, all that thought is that Classic's not going to have as many workers as he wanted, really. With a nice Baneling attack coming in, 8 workers do go down. And now my question is, with these 4 Colossi, is Classic going to come through with the push? The Hive, it's only just now finishing.
Yeah, I mean, we got to see how the Banelings connect. But you got to imagine with Heroes control, this is going to be a real issue.
Yeah, Classic playing this really well. The Vipers are going to have to come out very quickly here for soO. Because keep in mind, not only do they have to pop, but they also have to be able to consume some energy from the hatcheries or from some other structures to actually abduct these Colossi. And if Classic catches wind of this, then it's going to be a really tough hold for the Zerg. You can see soO, he's trying to buy time right now with these counterattacks, and he's doing a good job of it. Classic perhaps not realizing the window of opportunity that he has is pulling all of his units back to clean up these attacks. The Viper is now almost ready to pop as soO gets ready to mount another counterattack, and now the Colossus coming in, doing work. Baneling's looking for connections, actually finding really big hits on these Stalkers, but you can see the damage the Colossi can actually do with no Vipers ready to abduct, as Classic has a big win in that engagement.
Yeah, I mean, soO, he's going to have to try to deal with this right now. We've got Classic just in a position where he can keep these Colossi so safe. The Stalkers can take some of the damage to the front and then blink right back away. A Warp Prism here to reinforce as well as juggle Colossi in and out of that.
I feel like that engagement is just kind of the turning point here in this game. The Vipers now, they're finally done. Actually going for Blinding Cloud. That's not going to be enough staying power. Classic just blinks forward, and soO is eliminated in game 1 here, this best of 3. Classic going up 1-0. And he really threaded the needle with that timing, because if those Vipers, if they get enough energy for the abducts, it's a lot harder to make that push work. I mean, imagine Classic pushing in, 2 of the Colossi get abducted. then suddenly there are winning chances for soO, despite how bad the early game went for him. But Classic just hitting, the Ihan timing, as they would say. This one timing, just the absolute perfect culmination of everything he had been building towards.
soO's face here, a stone mask. He knows he's going to have to fight for his tournament life right now against Classic, who really, in a very impressive fashion, just got a bunch of damage in early on, set up for the push. When he had all the tools at his disposal, he was able to move in there and get that kill.
Yeah, it feels like one of those games that truly was decided by the early game. With the Oracle harassment, with the Adept shading in, so much damage was done to soO's Queen count, to his economy. You saw that with his low army count later, with his poor creep spread. And so soO, coming into game number 2, he's really gonna have to iron down that defense. Let's see if he can do it.
Twisted Minds Classic. Guangdong Freaks soO.
Okay, quick probe scout coming out here. Cool to see Classic able to use that hero style so well.
Yeah,
with the Mass Dogs. In fact, at some point in time in that cast, he turned into hero for me. I started calling him hero. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is Classic play. Like, we talked about a hero did this, and then I think switched the player names out. I'm like, well, he's playing today,
well,
but not this game. But
yeah, it's one of those situations where, like, if you hide the players playing, you just take a screenshot of the mid game. There's 3 Oracles killing Lings. Stalkers are blink microing. They're denying the creep spread. They're getting good trades against Roaches and against Lings. It's like, yeah, that's hero. It's hero watching play. Classic just really showing how much he has improved. He can, draw comparisons like that in our minds with arguably the best PvZ player in Korea right now in Hero. Just a really fantastic game, and I'm especially impressed with how well he was able to navigate that early game harassment, because it felt like he never missed a beat. He came in with the Adepts time and time again. He was able to find constantly the correct angle to pick off drones, and when he was doing that behind kind of the veil of the Adept harassment, he was also scouting the Queen positioning, because he was noticing that the spores weren't made in every single base, and so he sees the Queens and he's like, okay, I have an avenue of attack here at the natural expansion. Those Queens are gonna have to go inject or spread creep elsewhere on the map. I'm gonna come in with these 2 Oracles at this one angle and get even more damage done. And eventually it culminated in soO really just in a dismal early game setup. I mean, the creep spread wasn't there. The drone count was low. He needed those Vipers to come out at the right timing to have a chance of winning this game, and Classic didn't even give him that advantage. He still hit right before the Vipers had just enough energy for Abduct. It was truly kind of a perfect PvZ.
What is your take on that style? I feel like it's really strong. The Mass Stalker Oracle, and then you could tech into, like he did Colossi in that game, but I've seen Disruptors as well.
I feel like it's probably the most stable and best way to play a PvZ, but also, I mean, these 2 Lings going to come in and get a really good scout. It's Classic with his Adepts all the way far forward. So you're going to see the Stargate, but going back to what you were saying there, I can recognize that it's probably the most stable style to play, but like, I play StarCraft. I'm not a pro like these guys, but I'm relatively high level, right? I can't do that style, man. I fall apart. PvZ mechanically is so difficult, and so, for me as an outsider looking in, watching somebody like Classic or Hero navigate the game that well in the early game, I mean, I know the community, we joke about, like, yeah, Protoss easy, haha, F2A move, but it's actually mechanically so difficult to do the kind of plays that Classic is doing.
For sure.
It's so impressive.
Well, we can meme and stuff, but I mean, this is like the hardest game ever made, and there is so much that you have to become a complete and total expert at. All these little nuanced situations, and the changes in the maps, and then you will engage in a new situation. You'll have to intuit how to deal with that. The pressure, the execution to even control things and micro them that well, to keep the macro going, the cycling in your head, knowing what to produce next, knowing what to look for on the other side.
And it's hard for Zerg too. When I say PvZ is hard for Protoss, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Zerg players. I mean, soO just barely wasn't perfect with his queen control. The kind of greedy defensive style he went for there in game number 1, and we saw the momentum shift because of that. If he had 2 or 3 queens of the natural expansion when the oracles came in, or he had a spore crawler, then maybe the game looks different, but that's kind of the way pro-level games are.
Yeah.
It's just on a knife's edge.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, and it's like, StarCraft is so much more about you need to know ahead of time what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
Kind of like, you know, in chess or one of these things where you have the pieces mapped out so far, and eventually you'll get in a unique game that you have to play out on your own, but a lot of it is just trying to have everything mapped out. Okay, so these lings are going to come in, and he's going to actually, this is kind of a funny move, he's like trying to shade in what would body block and save that Adept.
Oh, and we actually have a Glaives follow-up for Classic. I was wondering, so we didn't see the Forge go down with a Twilight Council at the same timing. I wondered what that meant, if it was going to be maybe a Blink all-in or something different, and in fact, it's going to be Glaives, and for soO, who's been playing a very Ling-heavy style so far in this game, even getting +1, and I mean, just think back to last game, how many more Lings we're actually seeing here in this, it feels he's trying to punish Classic's greed in terms of not placing down a shield battery, although this is not the angle you want to come in at these. That's basically the perfect mineral line and like wall with the geyser of like any map. There's no surface area to be found whatsoever, so I'm liking this build order setup here for Classic. I don't even know if soO has a Roach Warren. And so if Classic comes in with a ton of Adepts, which it looks like he's gunning to do,
right,
with Glaives, with Oracles, maybe it doesn't end the game outright, but I feel like soO is in more trouble than he realizes right now. I think this is a dangerous moment for him if he doesn't catch wind. And oh, the Zerglings don't even see the shade coming across. I don't think he knows.
Yeah, I mean, well, he should be suspicious of the lack of anything over here, but yeah, this is going to be one of those moves. Oh my God, and he gets an insane connect there, stunning the drones. The transfuses come down, and somehow none of these queens have died yet until just then.
Yeah, the first transfuse is finally running out as the Adepts are just going to shade into the main base right now as the Lings are out of position. They're going to find their way between the mineral line and the gas, so some pretty nice surface area here for the Adepts, trading quite favorably, and a couple of queens already going down. The Adepts, oh my goodness, another stasis ward off screen, catching even more drones. More Adepts into the third base now of soO. He is falling apart.
He's everywhere. Classic is just killing it right now. He's going to shade into the, oh no, he's going to fake it out and try to keep the Adepts a little bit safer, but 10 drones already fall. Now there should be enough Zerglings that the momentum from this push is going to be gone. Another one!
Another stasis trap.
Dude!
That's 3 stasis traps, and we're not even done yet. He's going to pick up Hydralisks with these Adepts. That's a rare catch. So soO, I mean, go back to the earlier in this game, he was cutting drones to pump out Lings and try and get damage done. And it didn't work. The Lings got cleaned up. And then Classic comes through with this counterattack while soO is droning. And he gets even more damage done. And so now soO just in a really tough position. I feel like he has to do something kind of crazy. And so right now he's throwing down an infestation pit. I imagine he's going to try and get Hive lurkers out. That's my read based on what he's doing. But Classic is in a commanding position this game.
Well, this is one moment where you see 2 players engaging with each other, and one is so much faster and just kind of on top of the, you know, that preempting move to shut down what's going to come next, and it was really impressive.
I mean, like, look at the standing army right now for soO. The Oracles just flew over it, and Classic has to be thinking, is that really all you've got? A handful of Hydras and a handful of Lings? Because I mean, soO's doing everything in his power to try and macro out of the situation, but it's a tough position to be in, man. He's only just now tying up with Protoss in terms of economy after losing those 10 workers, and that's not even to say anything about those stasis traps that slow down his eco so much more, too.
Well, this game could look a lot like the previous one, maybe not in unit composition, but in style.
Yeah.
Where, you know, a push is going to come out, and it's going to be tough for the Zerg to survive. You were mentioning lurkers could be a thing, but now we're going to see what looks like instead Hydraling, Baneling. And so this is sort of a damage pylon where you try to kind of burst them down. And that can work, especially against a pretty gradual growing Protoss. that's really focused more on tech.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering how soO is really going to be able to use this Hive tech. Of course, he's going to get adrenal glands with this very Ling-based composition, but I mean, do you go into something like Ultralisks from this position? I don't think so. It feels like there aren't a lot of right answers for soO in terms of what to do and how to approach this game. He's just kind of worked himself into a position where he doesn't have that many chances unless he's able to trip Classic up. And if those Oracles spot those Banelings, soO really needs something like these Banes to connect with a ton of probes to get himself back into this game. But there's 2 Archons waiting for them, Tasteless. It's a nightmare.
Okay, so he's gonna get, I think, 1 probe.
Oh no. All right, well, this Ling run by, even getting blocked in by the Warpin. That could have been better. And Storm is done, by the way. We have a lot of Templar Urban, high energy. And Storm can absolutely eat through Ling Hydras, especially off creep like this. Even the Oracle's coming into the main base. Only 1 more probe getting taken down. Classic is like Neo, just seeing through the Matrix right now at PBZ. This is insane.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And it's going to be Classic's turn to push through here pretty soon.
I mean, as Classic from this position, I think you just max. Like, you just build a maxed army. Everything that soO has sent your way, you've been able to parry. And a maxed army that Classic assembles at this point, considering that soO's investing into things like Ling run-bys that are getting cleaned up and that you already have the perfect tech for in Storm Archon, and Baneling run-bys, massive Baneling run-bys that aren't getting any probes. You gotta know that he's hurting, and he's not gonna have Broodlords, he's not gonna have Hive Tech Lurkers, he's not gonna have Ultralisks, so if Classic is just patient and maxes out, I mean, look at this Protoss army. soO's economy is not in a position to deal with this, because if soO wants to win this game, he's going to need to have 1 big wave with a good engagement and then some follow-up remax.
Yep,
and that's just not going to happen.
I think you're probably right. I thought maybe he was going to try to get Banelings from every single side, but instead it looks like he's going to be kind of fighting into this arc, which is going to be pretty good for the Psy Storms. And so, almost like watching someone cut through a jungle with a machete. We're seeing the, oh my God, these Storms.
Oh man, every single Ling and Bane just out of those Storms. That was like 80+ Lings that went down.
Yeah, and you can see there's about 50 Zerglings being remade right now. Now, Protoss did lose some stuff back there too, but they could, Classic can casually reinforce this with ease. You know, he's got the Warp Prism right there. Another set of nice Psy Storms. Keep in mind, there aren't any Banelings here.
I think this Blinding Cloud actually forces the Immortals forward, so the Lings are able to clean them up. As Classic overextending maybe a little bit here. Warpin now coming in. soO might be able to clean this one up.
Very impressive.
Yeah, well done by him.
Unfortunately, this hatchery is not picked off here for Classic's sake. This is kind of wild because the Archon's just going to walk away. Which one do you like more, the Archon or the Immortal? You got to pick one.
The favorite child.
Yeah.
But despite soO barely holding off there, what does he really have going for him, you know?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? Like, think of how many Banelings were made back there. The Zerg is going to have, I mean, that was all of the gas that was mined for that entire game spent on those Banelings. Now, look, soO did not lose bases, so that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I don't think too many workers went down either, but still, he's behind an economy compared to the Protoss, who is a couple of workers ahead. And you know, the really scary thing for me right now is soO. I think that he thinks Classic is far more committed. By the way, this is such a smart read by soO coming in to try and intercept this.
So he's going to probably just leave that there for now.
Yeah, I think he just park it. Actually surprised he didn't get try to duct it with a Hydra or something.
Yeah.
But what I'm worried about for soO is that I think he believes Classic was more committed to that attack than Classic really was, because he's going into Greater Spire against a Protoss that is starting their carrier transition.
Right.
And Broodlords do not beat carriers. I think actually if you open the help menu in the StarCraft 2 client, it will tell you that Broodlords are very bad against
They
carriers.
need an upgrade where they can fly even higher in the air so they can shoot down onto the carriers. That's what I'm waiting for.
They should be able to do it on Oceanborn, man. We see like probes die and their corpses just go flying all the way up into the ceiling. It's got to get a Broodlord low enough HP that it has like the buoyancy to fly to the top of the map.
Well, the game quieted down a little bit. We're getting to a much more sophisticated tech from the Protoss, the mothership. is
The Mothership.
Mothership, yeah.
This is the first time I think we've seen it in this season of GSL Code S. That is
This might be
300.
our first Mothership cast, to be totally honest.
Yeah, this is 300 invested. It is 6 supply instead of 8 supply. The Mothership, if you missed the patch notes from a couple of weeks ago, it did get a rework where it is cheaper, not exactly as effective and as massive, but it's more mobile. Its abilities are instantly available from the get-go, and this could set up for some really cool plays. I mean, keep in mind, the Mothership has one of the best recall abilities. It's a much better recall than the Nexus recall, because the Mothership, it casts the recall, it can still move while the recall is happening, so you can almost preempt it. And for Classic here, this might be a situation where he sends the Mothership around the corners of the map into the main base of soO and recalls, gets some critical damage done on the infrastructure, and then recalls back home through the Nexus. There are some really fun plays you can do with the Mothership, so I'm wondering how he's going to use it. I mean, even in a straight-up battle with the Time Warp activating more rapidly than it used to, it has a lot of power, but I feel like we're kind of about to reach the breaking point here with soO starting to siege down this expansion for Classic. Meanwhile, there is a big Zealot run by at the 12 o'clock position. Not a lot of anti-air here for soO, only one Viper, so a couple of Abducts available. Oh, it gets fed back.
The Storms are really good here.
Yeah.
And you can see the carriers are starting to be able to advance. Look at that Mothership, it's so much faster now. It's like a just beautiful Frisbee going through the air.
Beautiful Frisbee, I love that. Time Warp actually getting casted right now. I don't think it actually triggers on air units, but Classic is undeterred anyways. The Corruptors get cleaned up by the carriers. Zealots continue to do more damage at the 12 o'clock position. I think Classic is about to close out this game and meet Hero in the final match.
Yeah, I think soO is in a lot of trouble. Somehow, once again, the hatchery is this one gonna get saved? No, that one goes down.
I mean, there's just so much damage getting done right now.
Yeah.
Classic, I actually expected him to move across the map and try and end the game, but it seems like he's doing the very safe thing and being patient because he knows he's in a completely commanding position. But for soO right now, I'm not sure what you do to play perfectly to try and come back. I mean, the odds are really stacked up against him. You're against a 5-base Protoss with a almost full carrier transition with multiple Templar out. These Zealots are going to barely, I think, miss getting this hatchery. Eventually, it will go down.
The Lings are going to have to work on those cannons before they can even get close to that Nexus, and that gives the Protoss enough time to do a recall and chase that away.
Yeah, by the way, the Mothership died in that fight, and the fact that it's cheaper now and also builds so much more quickly means that it is already back on the field, which is really cool. How active you can actually be with this in terms of survivability, you know? You can really just trade it out and just kind of bring it back if you're in a position like Classic is.
Classic just really taking his time here. We're going to have the next wave of 2 Zealots come up and try to get this hatchery. Will we ever get our closure and have this hatchery get killed off or not?
It's actually really funny seeing like 3 Broodlords try to chase down 4 Zealots on the top side of the map. Keep in mind, the other hatchery, it did get taken out, so soO's been on like a 4-base economy basically this entire time. Whereas Classic is macroing up quite happily, actually taking a quite significant supply lead here against Zerg. And you know, on paper, you look at these armies, if they clash right now, Classic has won this game. But you know, this is kind of do or die. It is the elimination match, so more power to him, just kind of playing this as smart as he can. He's getting more air weapon upgrades. He's getting the Void Ray speed upgrade. But he's just going to wait until he has a truly unbeatable army before moving across the map and trying to end this game. And that's the smart play. That's the championship caliber play where you know you have the win in the bag as long as you do the safest possible move. And are we going to get a closure, Tasteless?
Please!
Oh, the transfuse!
Oh,
no!
my God!
But hey, it's setting up for this play right now.
This hatchery is becoming a seasoned veteran of the game.
It's gaining XP.
It's become powerful. It's got an eye patch on. It's grizzled. It's been through so much.
Well, this is the true Golden Armada coming in. Void Rays, carriers, Time Warp coming down. There are multiple storms that are going to land here on these Corruptors. As the counterattack by soO on Classic side of the map is completely thwarted.
All
and
right,
we finally reached the breaking point.
GG Classic takes that game. And this means we get a rematch. Classic versus Hero. Very, very cool.
Classic versus Hero, really anything can happen in that best of 3 too, but man, I gotta give props to soO coming into this. You know, he's a player that's really been struggling to get his footing again, especially in Code S since returning from the military, but every iteration that we see from him is just continually getting better. He had a great series against GuMiho. Even against Classic, these games, you know, he didn't have the best starts, but he was able to fight back and really draw it out.
Yeah.
I think eventually things are going to come together for soO, and I mean, you can see these veterans, they have a lot of respect for one another.
Yeah, well, they've all been battling it out for over a decade of this game, you know. They've made history together, and so you can see the smile on soO's face. Up next, guys, Classic versus Hero, the rematch to see who will get that final spot in the round of 8.